Yo, how's it going, people? It's your boy Vidz in the house. I hope everyone is doing well. Now, in this video, what I'm going to be doing is reacting to Sheikh Yasir Qadhi, a great intellectual giant of Al-Islam in the Da'wah movement. And this Sheikh, aka Ya'juj Ma'juj, is the original idea for The Walking Dead, aka Mr. Zombie, aka Mr. Supra Rational. What he said in this video, genuinely, I was gobsmacked. I really was gobsmacked. I was like, did he actually just say that? So what I'm going to be doing is reacting to what he's saying. And this video was brought to my attention by none other than the godfather of the ex-Muslim movement and my real father-in-law, Hassan Radwan. So please check out his video in the description below. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to his channel. Without any further ado, let's get into it.
If solid arguments and good personality were enough to convince the world of the truth of Islam, the Quraysh would have been convinced of the Prophet ﷺ as soon as the Prophet ﷺ opened his mouth. And remember that even our Prophet ﷺ, it took him 23 years of constant preaching, and even then it wasn't his arguments that won the Quraysh over at the end of the day. It was the political conquest of Mecca. It was the political conquest of Mecca that eventually caused the leadership of the Quraysh and the people of Mecca en masse. وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. So we need to be very, very frank here. Strong arguments by themselves will never win converts.
This for me is truly amazing. I mean, Yasir Qadhi is basically saying here that despite the perfection of the Prophet, his mannerisms, his etiquette and his beauty and all this kind of stuff, he was not able to convert everyone to Islam. And the only way he established his dominance was through military force, through political action. And this idea that Islam is spread by love and peace and just, I don't know, giving, samosa at open days at mosques or whatever it is, this is complete ahistorical and simply untrue. The Prophet, despite his perfection, had to resort to methods that everyone else in history has had to resort to, which is basically beating your enemy physically and establishing some sort of political dominion. The Prophet is not exceptional. He's not different. He's not unique in any sense. I know Muslims like to think that because obviously they're Muslim, but he's what Yasir Qadhi has basically said. He's basically said what what Islam critics have been saying for many years. But now he simply said it, and now Muslims are going to be like, yeah, no big deal. No, we knew that. Really? But you know what? It only gets better. So let's continue watching.
We also need to be aware of some of the psychological problems. And our psychologists fully understand the technical term for it, or the mass term for it, is groupthink. Groupthink. This is the biggest problem. And it is a technical psychological term, groupthink. You can call it social conditioning. Groupthink is when you are born and raised in a group, you will think like the group. It's very simple, right? When you're born and raised in a group, you will think like the group. And you will assume that that's group's relative orientation, standards, mechanisms, mannerisms, culture, theology, everything that you associate with your own group, that is automatically the default. That is where you begin looking at the whole world through the lens of your own group that you have happened to be born and raised among. So the point is that we need to be cognizant of this issue called groupthink and understand it is very, very, very difficult to persuade someone to break away from the group. And in fact, the fact of the matter, at some level, we are all guilty of groupthink.
SubhanAllah.
Every one of us is quote-unquote guilty of groupthink here. Like we are tickled, we're amused at something we have never been exposed to.
We are all guilty of groupthink. That is a truly amazing statement by Yasir Qadhi, because what you're basically saying is the only reason, or one of the major reasons why Muslims are Muslims, is not because they thought about it. It's not because Islam makes sense. It's not because it's rational, super rational even. It's because you're born in that society, and that's all you know. And everything you think about the world is through the lens of how you're brought up. So this idea that non-Muslims are willingly or sort of actively not trying to understand Islam or trying to malign Islam, and that their intentions should be questioned, This is false. What you are resisting, their point of view, just as much they are resisting your point of view, because they are born in a different environment, in a different country, with different family and culture and so on and so forth, the same way you are. So this for me is a massive, I mean, I honestly respect what he said here, but from a purely da'wah, Islam is the best point of view, it's a huge own goal. It is a huge own goal. You've basically admitted that we're born in a culture that promotes this. That's why we believe this. If we were born in a different culture that believed something else, we would believe something else, which to me completely defeats this whole Islam is amazing or unique perspective. This, of course, is true for Christianity or Hinduism or Judaism or any other religion or schism out there, right? So bear that in mind. I will come back to that.
The second thing to be aware of is something that psychologists have called in-group bias. You are always biased towards your own group.
Allah.
And you make excuses for your own group.
Indeed.
And you look positively at your own group versus those who are outside of it.
Subhanallah.
What your group does, if the same thing were to be done by somebody outside, you would problematize it.
Yes.
But when it's done by your side, your people, your group, in your minds, you find a justification.
Tribalism.
Right? Now, why is this important? Because we are the other when it comes to this society. And things that our religion has done, or the Prophet ﷺ has done, or has happened in the Sahaba's time, this is not in-group bias. We have in-group bias when we look at those things. We find an easy justification. From our paradigm, it makes sense. But realize, if the same things had happened against us, we would have not found justification for those things.
Wallahi Azim, this is truly an amazing statement by Sheikh Yasir Qadhi, because what you've basically admitted, what he's basically saying is that, you know, we find Islam amazing and we find it obviously true because we're born in that culture. Had we been born or raised with a different environment or in a different environment with a different culture, we would think Islam doesn't make as much sense as we do now. And we would not find easy justifications for the Prophet's actions. Well, duh, of course. This is like, it's so obvious. I can't even believe we're saying this. But for him to admit it, for me, shows that Islam does not have this universal reality, universal appeal that Muslims claim it does, or Islam claims it does. Oh, Islam is easy to understand. I mean, there's so many verses. Oh, if only they look, or only they ponder, or Islam is easy to understand. Well, clearly not. There are in-group biases. Why is it that the vast majority of Muslims were born in a Muslim country, or Muslim society, or Muslim family? Same is true for Christians and for Hindus and Jews and everyone else, right? So we have to acknowledge that everyone has a bias. Everyone on some level is tribalistic. We will defend our tribe over the truth. This is the reality. If someone brings evidence against your belief in Islam, the vast majority of Muslims will defend their belief even if the evidence is pointing against them. Right? They will find some sort of justification. They will, all out of context, all the verses this, but my sheikh said this, but my dad said this, but the Prophet can't be wrong. We will find some sort of explanation, some sort of justification, because we don't want to challenge our tribe, our identities. I get it, human beings are social beings, and we want to live in a community, and we don't want to ruffle the feathers. But the truth does not care about the ruffles of your feathers or about your tribe. The truth is above that. The truth is above your tribe.
My dear Muslim brothers and sisters, there is a reason why the political strength of Islam followed the ideological and theological conversion. If you understand what I'm saying. If you don't, then think about it. There is a reason why the borders of the Muslim world today are essentially the borders of the Umayyad and Abbasid and Ottoman empires.
Wow. Wallahi azim. Wow. So what you're... I mean, Yasir Qadhi is a gift. He really is a gift. You're basically saying the reason why Muslims are Muslim is because there were empires in the past that conquered lands, that took over other people's empires or kingdoms or whatever it is, and converted them to Islam. Whether it's by force or whether it's by other means. That's it. If you get what I'm saying. Wallahi Adim, this is beyond belief. This runs contrary to all this. Islam wasn't spread by the sword. Islam was peace and love, and it was just interacting with Muslims and giving out biryani and hummus and all that kind of stuff. That's why they became Muslim, because they saw the beauty of Islam and all this kind of lovely jubbly stuff. Muslims will criticize, and rightly criticize, Christians for their missionaries in South America, in Africa, in parts of Asia, right? And say, look, the reason why South Americans are Christian because you guys went over there and savagely brutalized those people and made them convert to Christianity. The reason why Africans are Christians is because you've done so many horrible things to those people and then converted them to Christianity. At the same time, completely ignore what Muslims did in Africa, and what Muslims did in Asia, and even parts of Europe. So this is what Yasir Qadhi, Sheikh Yasir Qadhi, was saying in group bias, in group preference, that when Muslims do it, no, not a problem. When Christians do it, whoa, this is colonialism, this is the religion of the white man. Even though Christianity and Islam are not religions of the white man, they're religions of the brown man. But anyway, that's a separate point.
When groupthink is positive, it's great. You want to keep it that way. Excellent. When
Wallahi.
groupthink is for Allah and His Messenger, alhamdulillah, it's great.
Alhamdulillah.
When groupthink is the opposite,
Allah.
It's a problem.
Astaghfirullah.
It really is a problem. It's a
wala.
problem for us. It's a problem for our children. It's a problem for da'wah.
This is nonsense. This is complete nonsense. When groupthink is for Allah, it's good. When groupthink is opposite, is what kind of nonsense? Really, I'm really surprised that Yasir Qadhi has said this. What you're basically saying is we should have social pressures to stop people thinking as individuals. Groupthink is not good, right? Even if I'm an atheist or whatever, an agnostic libertarian, right? I don't want people to believe what I believe because of some force out there or social pressures that if you don't, you're going to get punished or go to hell or you're going to be in prison. I don't want people to believe what I believe if those are the conditions. I want them to believe what I believe because they thought about it themselves. Individual thinking. They have to go through the process themselves. You don't teach people what to think, you teach them how to think. Wallahi, you teach them how to think. And what Yasir Qadhi, unfortunately, is promoting, not the how to think, but what to think. And as long as you believe in Al-Islam, alhamdulillah, you are fine. It doesn't matter if you've gone through the process yourself. It doesn't matter if you've gone through your own journey. Just think, just agree with the conclusion. Don't worry about the methodology. Don't worry about the process. This is like people. I don't mean to be rude to Yasir Qadhi, but when people say, "Oh, he's a great intellectual guy," not really. This is not a sign of intellectual thought to disagree or disregard the process and the methodology and individual thinking. Forget all of that. Let's go with groupthink.
And by the way, please don't quote me Malaysia and Maldives and whatnot. Please don't say, "Oh, look at those," because firstly, they were exceptions.
Allah.
And secondly, do you know how those exceptions occurred?
Please tell me.
How did Malaysia become a Muslim land?
Tell me.
How did the Maldives become a
Stop
Muslim
teasing
land
me.
without the political dominion of Islam, get what I'm saying here, reaching them? How?
How?
Do you know? I'm asking you.
Someone tell me.
Yes.
Please. Anyone.
Trading. That's what they teach you in Sunday school. MashaAllah. Your whole
MashaAllah.
knowledge of Islam comes from Sunday school. Oh, high school Sunday school. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Okay,
Akbar.
alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Excellent.
What was that?
Their rulers converted to Islam. When their rulers converted to Islam, the people were essentially socially forced to follow.
La ikra fi din. There is no compulsion in religion, but there is in empire and da'wah. Yasir Qadhi, you are a gem. If you were in front of me, wallahi, I would kiss you right now, because what you have said has basically undermined all of this da'wah. Oh, how did Islam get to Malaysia? It was through trade. Oh, yani you give me orange, I give you banana, halal banana. Oh, by the way, become Muslim. Nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. Of course, I'm not saying that no one converts to Islam freely, but this idea that Islam just organically just grew and just like, oh, trading and, you give me an orange, I give you an apple, you become Muslim, la ilaha illallah Rasulullah. Nonsense. It was when the leaders socially forced the F word, which Muslims hate because they say, no, Islam is voluntary and all peaceful and all that kind of stuff. But it was Forced. Forced. And he also said that it's Malaysia, Indonesia, these are exceptions. Yasir Qadhi, I love you. Genuinely. You've basically undermined all this propaganda. Islam was peace, not through the sword. It was through trade. It was through love and ishq and muhabba. No. It was when the leaders socially force people to think a certain way is when they become Muslim. And by the way, I mean, can people leave Islam very easily in Muslim countries? Can they just say, you know what? This is not for me. I want to give something else a go. No, they cannot. So this is... what do I say? Are you listening to what your own sheikh is saying? Forget me. Wallahi, I'm a kafir. But what about Sheikh Yasir Qadhi? He is saying that Islam spread through force.
My dear brothers and sisters, because of the internet, we don't have the luxury to be in our beautiful bubble anymore. Because of the internet, I am strongly against ignoring the bigger problems out there and just teaching these half Sunday school myths.
Well, I'm guessing it doesn't feel great to have your bubble burst, Sheikh Yasir Qadhi. And this is what is happening across the Muslim world and across just the world in general, not just the Muslim world, is that people have access to information that they could not obtain otherwise. If you are a Muslim growing up in a Muslim country, I don't know, Pakistan, Saudi, Egypt, Malaysia, you know, the great trading country of Malaysia, and all of your religious education you get through a mosque and your imam, and you only hear about Hindus, atheists, Christians, the other, through your imam and what your imam has to say, or what your school teacher has to say, or your other Muslim friends and family members have to say, then of course your understanding of atheism, of science, of other religions and other political philosophies is going to be heavily skewed in a way that's going to portray them in a negative light and portray Islam in a positive light. That is a fact. I mean, I really would be surprised if anyone would argue against that. But now we have the internet. Now you can independently search for things and expose yourself to a wide variety of opinions and people that you would never have met in your mosque or your school or in your neighborhood. And now people are waking up to the fact that I've been living my life this way, this certain way, and believing in this God or prophet or whoever, only because that was the only guy or God I was exposed to, and because everyone around me socially forced me to believe in that thing. So now that I have access to all these other ideas, of course I'm going to look at them, and of course they're going to challenge me. So that's why you have so many Muslims who are now leaving Islam, or at least becoming agnostic. They're asking questions which actually pain the imams, which cause great discomfort to the imams and these sheikhs, because the sheikhs had the monopoly. They had the luxury of being in a monopoly where they controlled what was said about atheists and Islam and Prophet Muhammad. They had the monopoly of saying Islam is this, atheism is that. In some Muslim countries, they say atheism is a disease, right? Atheism is some sort of cancer or some sort of terrorism even. Now they don't have that option. They don't have that monopoly. And this is what happens when you get big monopolies who are now scared. Yeah, we have the internet. Let's block, let's ban, let's challenge. Your days, unfortunately, are numbered. Your monopoly, you will lose your monopoly. And as someone of the free market, I'm very... Competition wins. Competition of ideas, competition of goods and services. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.
Public awareness has increased to the level that everything they know about our Prophet ﷺ, it's not an outright lie. It is, they've chosen this, that, oh, the massacre Banu Qurayza, they said, right? Or married to this many women. And they construct an image of a person we don't even recognize.
Allah.
But when you go and look at what made that image, point after point, a lot of times these points are valid.
Allahu
right?
Akbar.
It's just a matter of what do you emphasize, how do you construct the image versus how do they construct the image.
Yasir Qadhi is a legend. So basically, we hear a lot of time by Muslims saying that when you talk about the Prophet and his wives, how he dealt with them, sexual relations, or how he dealt with Jews or other people. I mean, I don't want to get into specifics, but basically things that Muslims don't like to talk about. When non-Muslims bring these things up, you often hear Muslims say, oh, that's a weak hadith, or that's made up, or that's fabricated, or that's out of context, or that's this, or this is this. 100 excuses, right? Like you were saying earlier. They'll find 100 ways to justify these things, and sometimes they just accuse non-Muslim critics of Islam by saying these guys are lying, these guys are Islamophobic, they have something against Islam. Well, Yasir Qadhi has basically said that this not all, people who criticize Islam, they're not lying. We don't view your prophet the same way you do, right? You will pick 10 things that are in your favor, that portray the prophet in a positive light, but we who are not bought into the idea of Islam and the prophet, we might think, well, actually, why did he do that? Why did he fight these tribes? Or why did he marry this many women? Or any other issue, for example. So this is not about lying. This is about perception. This is about group bias. This is about tribalism. This is about the fact that we were not brought up in a Muslim predominantly culture, and we don't buy into your prophet's dream. And even those Muslims who are now ex-Muslims, when we are exposed to different ideas and we look at the same evidence from a different point of view, or we look at more evidence. So before you were exposed to this much of Islam, now we're exposed to that much, right? We think, well, actually, yeah, he may have done 10 positive things, but he also did 10 negative things. And if someone's a perfect prophet, you can't have even one negative thing. This is why people leave Islam. This is why people criticize Islam. It's not because we hate Muslims. It's because we're not bought in to your dream.
They could construct an image that is so radically different from ours and yet still based upon our books and our tradition.
Yes.
We will say, you've only chosen those aspects. How will they respond to us? What will they say to us? Number one, why do those aspects even exist? Number two, you've also picked and chosen. Exactly, right? You see, we have to be intellectually honest enough to say this, right? They will say to us, firstly, even if we chose these 10 points,
yes,
why do these 10 points exist? They're problematic.
Na'am.
You are telling us he is rahmatan lil alameen. You are telling us he is qudwa. You are telling us he is the role model. Well, if he's a role model, even if it's 10% of his life, explain that 10%. And isn't that a valid understanding from their perspective, right?
Indeed.
And then the flip side, we say to them, you're biased. They say back in return, so are you.
I think that's an excellent point to finish this video on, is that Yasir Qadhi, hats off to him. I don't know if he realizes what he just said and the magnitude it could have on many Muslims out there. But what you've basically just said is that Muslims, just like everyone else, surprise, surprise, are tribal. They have their own in-group bias, which they are going to defend like any other group out there. And this idea that Islam transcends all these types of biases or tribalism, it does not. Islam is just as tribal as any other religion that came before it or after it, or any other political ideology that came before it or after it. And I want to really genuinely engage with you out there, Muslims or non-Muslims. If you are genuinely interested in seeking the truth, having listened to everything we've just listened to, what do you think is the best way to pursue the truth? Is it just to simply accept what your family, what your culture, what your religion, what your country say, and say, whatever my country says, whatever my religion, whatever my family says, I'm going to believe in it and I'm going to back it the whole way? Is that the way to the truth? Or is the way to the truth by taking a step back, removing yourself from your emotional attachments of this religion or of your culture, of your society, and saying, let's look at things from the beginning. What can we know that is true? And in my humble opinion, you're more than welcome to disagree. I think we have to use logic, we have to use reason, we have to use evidence, science, and so on and so forth. These are the things that are going to help us to understand what the truth is. If you are not interested in the truth, and you just want to be tribal and beat your chest and say, my team is the best team, blue team versus the red team. If you just want to do that, then continue living your life. But please do not shove your religion or your ideology down the throats of people who are not interested. Okay? Recognize your bias, and that may bring you joy. But don't pretend you are after the truth. You are only after the satisfaction of your tribe. I hope you enjoyed this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu wa maghfiratuhu.